Hello folks, my name is Marco Landry and today I'm going to be documenting the process of installing an Öhlins steering damper on my Yamaha R6. So I've recently done the same thing for my R3, but now I also purchased an extra unit and I'll be showing you how to install this on your R6. And that's going to work for the 2006 to the 2016 Yamaha R6. So stay tuned and we'll get started right now. So as I mentioned in the intro, my goal today is to install one of these Öhlins steering damper on my Yamaha R6. So I'm a big fan of the GPR units. For those of you who have watched my videos, I've rebuilt multiple of these and I have actually 5 of these units right now. And recently I was at the racetrack and my V5 stopped working. And then I tried to switch it to a V4 and the V4 was leaking. And my B-bike, my other R6, also had an issue with the steering damper because it was leaking as well. So I have all these GPR units and I had to waste 2 sessions in order to repack this very quickly at the track in order to go out. So I decided that I would try something different now, and hence the purchase of this Öhlins unit. And if you watch my videos, you'll know that I've also installed one of these on my Yamaha R3 as well. So the process is going to be very similar. I also have a mounting kit here that comes from Graves, and this will allow me to attach the steering damper on the left fork tube and also on the air duct ram. So I've already removed the bodywork to speed up the process. I also removed my top triple. And one thing of interest, if you plan on using this bracket and that damper, in the top triple you have your ignition key. The ignition key needs to be removed and replaced with a switch. In my case, I have the Woodcraft keyless cable. Once this is removed, you're all set to go. You simply need to remove the top triple, and then I'll remove the clamp or the cuff for the clip-on the left side. I'll slide in this bracket from Graves. They also have this other bracket that will mount on the right side of the air duct. And after that, I'll be able to start assembling the steering damper. Okay, so just before we get started, this is what my setup looked like before. So I had the GPR unit. I'm gonna simply remove this. And you can see here that my key is no longer there. I simply just need that switch to turn the bike on and off. And I'm leveraging the Woodcraft cable for this. So this is definitely an advantage if you're doing track days to no longer have that key. And I also remove the OEM gas cap so that I don't need a key for this as well. So now everything is keyless. But to my point from earlier, I had to remove this unit from my other R6. And at the same time, when I remove my top triple, I just simply shaved the top here and I repainted it very quickly now. So it's still not 100% dry. So that's why you can still see the tape on it. But I simply removed that ring. I just grounded all of this this section here so that this key ring adapter here is no longer there. So that's going to look a bit nicer. I also did this on my R3 previously, so that's why I wanted to replicate the same process, and I'll eventually do this one. Okay, so as I mentioned, the bodywork has been removed to simplify the process. I've detached the reservoir from the top triple. I've removed my top triple. Now I'm going to remove this cuff and we will slide the adapter from Graves just below this cuff here for the clip-on, and we will be able to mount the steering damper at the top right here. So it's a very crowded area. So I'm anxious to see how it's going to work and if it's going to get tangled on the cable, in the cable on the side here, but we'll see in a few minutes. So we'll cross that bridge once we get there. So the first step will be to loosen up these cuffs here, and your application might be slightly different. In my case, I have the Woodcraft clip-ons here. So again, you might have a different type of clip-ons, or you might have your OEM clip-ons, but regardless, you will need to remove them in order to install this this cuff from Graves. Okay, so now I can simply slide this off and put this on the side here, like so. And Graves is recommending, the instructions are fairly good, by the way, you can access this online, but Graves in this case is recommending to install the fork clamp onto the left fork leg under the handlebars, and the fork clamp is mounted with the step pointing downward. So you have a little step here on the top of your unit, so this has to be facing downward. So we'll just slide this in like so, and maybe I'll just have to loosen up that bolt here first. So let's loosen this up just a little bit here, and I'll stretch this a bit and slide this down like so. Then I'll just apply a bit of torque on it so it doesn't move too much here. And now I can put my clip-on back on. And I already have a little black mark here, like just a little Sharpie mark, that allows me to realign my cuff without having to use the tool to measure the same angle on both sides. So that makes my life a little bit easier. So the next step now is to install this bracket on the right side of the air duct. And in order to do so, you'll need to remove the two bolts that are here. It's probably a bit easier if you swing your handlebars to the right. And we will remove these two bolts here. I believe they are 6 millimeter. And after that, we will be able to remount this bracket with the T25 Torx bolt that were provided with the hardware kit from Graves. So let's take the first step here and remove these two bolts. And once these two bolts are removed, we can now use the bracket with the two T25 Torx screws. And when you install the bracket, you want to make sure that this part is pointing up, obviously. So I just realized that Graves is recommending to put some tread locker on these two bolts. So I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on both of these bolts. Blue Loctite on that second bolt as well. I'm not going to torque these bolts to the right specs right away. I'm gonna just make sure everything fits and works properly first, and then I'll resecure everything at the proper torque specs after. So this is installed. So now I'm simply gonna install this this clamp that came from Öhlins on top of the unit here, and I'll do it like this here. And because I want this to be at the top here, I'll do it like this. I have to unscrew this a little bit here. So I'm going to slide it over. going to screw these two bolts very tight right now. I just want them to stay in place while I get adjusted, and I'll loosen them up once it's properly mounted on the bike, and I'll slide it the right location. But for now, what I want to do is I want to use these two bolts that came with the hardware kit from Graves to mount this on the bike, leveraging the brackets. So I'm going to put this here and mount this right in the middle here with the first bolt. And this is going to be quite a crowded spot here with all of this hardware and the cables. So that's why I didn't want to tighten everything in place yet. I just want to make sure that everything fits properly first. So I'm just going to go finger tight on this one. And I'm gonna now mount the second end here on that bracket, or attach it to the bracket, I should say. So there we go. Okay, so now this is attached, and that everything will move freely. So I'm gonna move or change the direction and see if it works okay here. And I think it might rub here, so we'll have to, I think I'm gonna have to be a bit creative here. So this is okay when I turn left all the way, and if I turn right all the way, I'm gonna have to pull this away a little bit here so it doesn't bottom out. So that seems to be now at the right location. Alright, so since that seems to be the right location, I'm gonna apply just a little bit of pressure on the cuff here, and then I'll move again from lock to lock to see if everything is moving freely. So I'm gonna just secure this in place. Again, I won't go super tight, just tight enough so it's not gonna move. And now if I move this again to this other side, it's definitely going all the way. So now I'm all the way left, and when I go all the way right, it's not bottoming down either. So that looks pretty good in terms of overall location. So I'll move this again here. My cables don't seem to get tangled, which is a good sign because I was extremely worried about this. So the other thing that you want to do when you're doing this is you want to make sure that this damper is parallel to the ground. So right now it's a little bit tilted to the right. So I'll have to readjust this and lift this up slightly on the right hand side with this cuff here. So this is why it's important that your bike is level as well when you do this work. So what I'll want to do here, because this damper, when I lift this like this, I can see that it's going at an angle towards the right. So it's tilted right a bit, so I'll have to loosen up the cuff and increase the height of the cuff. So just raise this up a little bit so that this damper is parallel to the ground. So what I want to do now is secure this in place, and in order to do so, I will also need to apply some Loctite on this bolt here. And the tightening specs for this, for the fork clamp on the fork leg, it's gonna be 15 Newton meter or 11 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna put a bit of blue Loctite, but before I do so, I just want to make sure that I'm not gonna lose my position here. So I'm just gonna put a bit of tape underneath so it doesn't slide down, and that it's also not gonna move position. So this is just me being lazy. I don't want to readjust it one more time here, so the tape will just hold this in place temporarily while I secure this back in place. And if I can find the right Allen key here, we'll get going. So I'm gonna loosen this up. Not only loosen up, but I'm gonna remove it fully from there. And we will put some Loctite on that little bolt here. So I'm being very gentle so that it doesn't move. There we go. So I'm just going to put a bit of that blue Loctite and re-secure this back in place here. Alright, so that should do the trick. I'm going to remove the tape now and make sure that it's nice and tight. And I'll secure this to the right specs in a minute here. But before I do so, I also want to come back and do a full lock to lock and make sure that nothing gets tangled. It looks okay on this side here, and also looks okay on the other side. It's not bottoming out here at this end, so it looks to be perfectly fine. So when I lift the left side up here, it looks like the damper is parallel to the ground, so I'm quite okay with that. And before tightening these to the right specs, I'm going to remove this once more, and I'm going to add a bit of blue Loctite on those bolts as well. So those two bolts at the top that are holding the damper in place are going to be the T40 Torx bits. I'm gonna simply unscrew the first one here, and as I mentioned, I'm gonna add some Loctite or some thread locker. So this is just the last step here to make sure that it's going to be solid. I add this thread locker in, and I'm going to remove the second bolt that's attached to the cuff on the left side. I'm going to apply some thread locker on this one as well. Alright, so that looks good. I'll do one more test here. Good, and that also looks good here. So when you do your testing from side to side, you want to make sure that now it's fully turned to the right, and you want to leave a little gap here so it's not bottoming out and damaging your unit. So if it's way too far at the end when you're turning to the right, you want to simply unscrew those two pinch bolts and readjust the damper by pulling or pushing it. And I would recommend leaving a small gap like this to make sure that it's optimal and you're not going to damage your unit when you go fully to the right. And you can see that when I'm turning on the other side, now it's working okay, nothing is tangled. When I zoom out a bit, if I turn that, now there's a bit of a gap here on this side and nothing is being tangled on the other side. So I'm happy with this. We are now all set, so I'm going to torque everything to the proper specs. Then we will reinstall the cuff for the clip-on and the top triple, and we should be good. Okay, so I'm gonna secure this bolt here. This is a 5mm internal X. I'm gonna torque this at 15 Newton meter. So 15 Newton meter, which is 11 foot-pounds. Alright, so this is okay here. Definitely don't want to over tighten this bolt to damage your tube. So that's why I'm following the specs very carefully on this one. And after that, we will torque the damper mount bolts. So the T40 bolts at the top here, these will be at 15 Newton meter as well. Alright, so we have one down. And now we will do the one connecting to the clamp here, or the cuff I should say. And same thing again, 15 Newton meter. And now I'll do the remaining two on the side here, which are the T25s. And for this one, I'm going to leverage the extension. And the specs, the torque specs for these on the right hand side are 15 Newton meter as well. So it's pretty simple. Everything is 15 Newton meter for the most part. All right, so everything is secure in place except for the pinch bolt for the damper itself. So I'm going to make sure that I still have my little gap here when it's fully turned to the right hand side. I can still slide it with my fingers a little bit here. And I'm going to use my internal X wrench. This is the 4mm. And the torque specs for these pinch bolt is 16 Newton meters. So not very tight. There's a lot of clamp power with this, so when you secure these bolts in place, you don't have to go super tight. So here we go. So this is enough here, and this is enough. So those two bolts are now secure as well. And one last check, when I turn to the right, I still have my little gap. And if I go fully to the left, it is also fine, and nothing is getting tangled. So now my last step is to reinstall the top triple, reinstall my clip-on as well, and then we will see if everything works properly. My top triple is almost fully dried now. The paint is still a bit sticky, but I'm good now to install my top triple again. And as I mentioned earlier, I actually removed the location where the key switch was attached. So now it's nice and clean, and that's what we're going to install next. So to install this, it's going to be the same process as when you took it off. Obviously, you want to align everything and gently wiggle this in on top of the two forks and the steering column in the middle. And you might need to do a bit of tapping on top in order to push it down properly here. So that's always a bit tricky. So I'm going to revert to my rubber mallet for that part here. So I'm just going to gently tap on both sides here just to get it going. Before I removed it, I took a mental note of where the rings, there's like 2 or 3 little rings at the top. So my top triple was right below the second ring. So this is my alignment marker, if you will. So I want to make sure that it's the same on both sides. And it seems to be pretty good now. All right, so now I'm going to install the steering stem nut. And the stem nut, obviously you have to put the washer first. So put the washer, after that put that nut. So the torque specs for this are 115 Newton meter. So I'm going to set up my torque wrench here to 115. So this is going to be quite a bit of torque here. So when you do this, you just want to make sure that you grab the handlebar, and here we go. So now we are at 115 Newton meter. Steering damper looks super cool right now. I love it. I love the way it looks. Pinch bolts here are 26 Newton meter. So 6 mil. And again, torque specs 26 Newton meter. Okay, and it's right at the second line on my tube here, so I know it's the right location. So knowing that I'm at the second line, or that my top triple is below the second line on my tube here, tells me that this is the right space or the right location, so it's properly seated. So now I'm going to secure this cuff as well, or that pinch bolt, at 26 Newton meter as well. So now I'm going to reattach my clip-on, or resecure my clip-on, and you can see here I've zoomed in enough so that you can see I have a little dot on my cuff, a little dot on the top triple, and this is just a way for me to properly align my clip-ons. So I'm gonna do a few turns here, or a few quarter turns here, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. In order to do so, I'm just gonna move. So this is a tight squeeze in here. So again, I'm gonna do a few quarter turns here, and I'm gonna finish on the other side by tightening this to the proper specs. I don't want to go too tight here, because again, with those 4 bolts, there's a lot of clamping power here, and you definitely don't want to go too tight to damage your tube here. So I think that looks good here. I'm going to do one last little squeeze on the other side, make sure that it's properly secured in place, and it looks good. I'm going to double check, make sure everything's okay with the air bolts as well, and it is. So one last check for peace of mind here. Here we go. So everything is now reassembled, and I'm gonna do one last check from side to side, or from lock to lock. So that looks good on this side here. On the clutch side, it looks good. Nothing is getting tangled, everything's moving freely. And on the right hand side, or the brake side, everything looks okay, nothing's getting pinched, it's moving freely. So that's it. We have a successful installation. So this is the last step here to install this brake fluid reservoir. After that, I'll reassemble the bodywork, and I'll be all set to go back to the racetrack without having to worry about my steering damper. So hopefully the video was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, please drop me a line or connect with me on social media. And yeah, the process is not too complex. It takes a bit of time. Obviously, if you need to remove the key, you'll need to figure out how to do this first. But after your key is removed, The process to install this damper is fairly straightforward. Graves are doing some great parts. And in my case, I also ordered the Öhlins damper directly from Graves. So everything came as a one package with the mounting brackets, the necessary hardware to secure everything in place, and the steering damper. So I know that Sport Bike Track Gear also resells this and resells the Graves part. So you can also purchase from STG as well. So that's it. Please do me a favor, if that video was helpful, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, stay safe, ride safe, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.